Let's start with a simple question: how many of us have ever written down a goal with excitement, only to lose that energy a few days later? It's not that we're lazy, it's that we forget why we started, and we rely too heavily on motivation, which is temporary. What truly sustains progress is consistency. Today, I want to share 5 ways to stay consistent with your daily goals, not just for a week, but for the long run. Consistency doesn't begin with discipline, it begins with meaning. When you know why your goal matters, effort becomes natural. If your goal is to wake up early, don't focus on the clock. Focus on what waking early allows you to do. Purpose gives routine its heartbeat. Many people chase routines, but systems are what sustain them. A schedule tells you when to act, but a system makes sure you can't forget to act. For instance, if your goal is to read daily, place your book on your pillow every morning. The cue triggers the habit before willpower is even needed. We often quit when things don't go perfectly, but consistency isn't about never missing, it's about always returning. If you miss a workout, that's fine. What matters is that you don't miss twice. Progress is built on momentum, not on flawless performance. We become who we spend time with. Share your goals with people who remind you of your potential, not your excuses. Accountability transforms effort into habit. It turns "I should" into "I will." Discipline is easier when your environment supports it. If you want to eat healthier, make the healthy choice the easy choice. If you want to study more, remove distractions before you start. Your environment should pull you forward, not hold you back. Consistency isn't glamorous, it's quiet. It's often unseen, but over time it builds the kind of character that results can't ignore. So the next time you feel like giving up, remind yourself, consistency isn't about doing everything right, it's about doing the right things repeatedly. Every consistent action begins with a purpose. When people talk about discipline, they often imagine it as a matter of sheer willpower, pushing through resistance, ignoring fatigue, forcing themselves to act. But true consistency doesn't start with effort, it starts with meaning. The human mind is wired to follow what it understands. If we don't have a compelling reason behind our goals, our energy fades, our focus drifts, and our actions lose direction. Purpose is the emotional anchor that turns a daily task into a meaningful pursuit. Without it, even the most carefully planned routine becomes mechanical and short-lived. Think about it this way: motivation gets you started, but purpose keeps you going. Motivation is like a spark, it burns bright and fast. Purpose, on the other hand, is the steady flame that sustains you when enthusiasm disappears. When you wake up early to exercise, you're not just training your body, you're showing yourself that health matters more than comfort. When you study late into the night, you're not simply memorizing information, you're investing in your growth, your confidence, and your future. Purpose transforms every repetitive action into a meaningful ritual. Purpose also gives clarity to your goals. Often, people set goals because they feel I should get fit. I should start a business. I should be more productive. These are admirable desires, but they're vague and external. They come from comparison or social pressure, not conviction. When your goals are driven by obligation instead of meaning, consistency becomes fragile. You'll show up when it's convenient, but you'll quit when it's difficult. However, when your goals align with your values, your behavior becomes consistent because it reflects who you are, not just what you want. To uncover that purpose, you must ask deeper questions. Why does this goal matter to me? What will it allow me to become? How will it improve my life or the lives of others? The quality of your answers determines the strength of your commitment. For example, someone who says, "I want to exercise because I should be fit," might skip a workout on a busy day. But someone who says, "I want to exercise because I want to be strong enough to play with my kids," carries a reason that can withstand fatigue and distraction. The second statement is personal, emotional, and rooted in identity. That's where consistency begins. Purpose also redefines success. When you act from purpose, your success is measured not only by outcomes, but by alignment, by how well your daily actions reflect your deeper intentions. This shift changes how you experience challenges. Setbacks no longer feel like failures. They become reminders of what matters. For instance, if your purpose is to build confidence through public speaking, a moment of nervousness isn't proof of weakness, it's part of the process of growth. This mindset keeps you engaged through difficulties rather than defeated by them. Another powerful aspect of purpose is that it creates emotional endurance. The human brain resists effort that feels meaningless. When tasks feel empty or disconnected from purpose, our natural instinct is to avoid them. That's why so many people abandon new routines after a few days. But when you attach a purpose to your goal, you give your brain a reason to persist even when it's uncomfortable. Emotional connection is stronger than temporary resistance. The mind can justify effort when it understands the why. Purpose-driven consistency also influences others. When people see you act with clarity and conviction, it inspires trust and admiration. Consistency rooted in purpose is contagious because it radiates authenticity. It's not about showing off discipline, it's about showing commitment to something that matters deeply. In workplaces, teams led by purpose-driven individuals are more cohesive and motivated. In personal life, relationships deepen when actions align with values. Purpose becomes not only a source of individual consistency, but a catalyst for collective effort. It's important to note that purpose isn't static. As you grow, your reasons evolve. The purpose that drives you today might not be the same a year from now. That's why reflection is essential. Take time regularly to revisit your why. Ask yourself whether your daily actions still serve the person you're becoming. This habit keeps your purpose fresh and your consistency intentional. When your purpose grows with you, your effort never feels outdated or forced. The relationship between purpose and performance is circular. Purpose fuels performance, and performance in turn reinforces purpose. Each time you act consistently, you strengthen the belief that your goal matters. Each small win becomes proof that your purpose is real. Over time, this feedback loop creates identity-based consistency where your habits are no longer tasks on a checklist, but expressions of who you are. That's when consistency becomes effortless, because it's no longer about discipline, it's about alignment. Staying consistent with your daily goals is not about pushing harder, it's about connecting deeper. You can force yourself to act for a while, but you can only sustain action when you care deeply about the reason behind it. Purpose turns repetition into devotion, effort into expression, and ordinary routines into extraordinary results. When purpose comes before performance, consistency stops being a struggle and starts becoming a natural reflection of your values and identity. Consistency is not about doing something every day just to keep a streak alive. It's about designing systems that make progress inevitable. Many people begin with enthusiasm, tracking days and celebrating streaks, but the moment they miss one, motivation collapses. A streak depends on memory and emotion, while a system depends on structure. Systems create predictability, and predictability breeds consistency. The goal is not to depend on willpower, but to build a framework that allows the right action to happen almost automatically. A system is a repeatable set of actions supported by cues, environments, and routines that make desired behavior easier. When you rely on motivation, you need to decide every day whether to act, but when you rely on a system, the decision is already made. Systems remove friction between intention and action. For example, a person who wants to write daily may wait for inspiration and end up skipping days. Another person who sets a time, opens the document automatically each morning, and begins writing for 10 minutes has a system. The second person's outcome becomes consistent not because of stronger willpower, but because of smarter design. Systems also reduce emotional resistance. Every time you have to make a choice whether to exercise, study, or work, your mind engages in negotiation. That negotiation drains energy. A system eliminates the negotiation by making the behavior default. Consider brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation because it's built into your routine. The same principle applies to goals. If your environment and schedule are structured properly, consistency becomes as natural as daily hygiene. Creating an effective system begins with identifying the smallest repeatable step that moves you toward your goal. People often set systems that are too ambitious. They plan complex schedules or long sessions, forgetting that sustainability matters more than intensity. A good system starts small but expands naturally. If your goal is to exercise, begin with the rule: put on workout clothes and stretch for 5 minutes. That simple act creates momentum, and momentum carries you further than motivation ever could. Over time, small steps compound into significant progress. Systems also thrive on cues. A cue is a trigger that tells your brain, it's time to do this action. Visual cues, environmental cues, or time-based cues can all anchor your habits. For instance, placing your running shoes near the door cues you to go for a jog. Keeping your notebook on your desk cues you to write. The purpose of a cue is to shift behavior from conscious effort to automatic response. When your environment speaks for your goal, your mind doesn't have to argue for it. In addition to cues, systems benefit from rituals. A ritual is the emotional rhythm that signals transition into a habit. Athletes often have pre-performance rituals not for superstition, but for focus. You can apply this principle to daily goals. If you meditate each morning, lighting a candle before you begin can serve as a ritual cue that tells your mind to slow down. Rituals connect action to identity, deepening commitment and making the system more personal. Tracking plays an important role in systems, but the mindset behind tracking matters. Many people use tracking to measure streaks, focusing on unbroken records. But streaks create pressure. One missed day can erase months of perceived success. Instead of tracking streaks, track systems. Ask, did I follow my process today? If not, why? Tracking becomes diagnostic, not judgmental. The purpose is not to punish inconsistency, but to improve design. Systems evolve through feedback, not through guilt. Flexibility is another key characteristic of an effective system. A rigid system collapses under change, but a flexible one adapts. For instance, if your system for studying depends entirely on a fixed location, travel will disrupt it. A better system allows for variation. You can study anywhere as long as you have your tools and time cue. Flexibility ensures that your habits survive life's unpredictability. Consistency is not perfection. It's the ability to continue adapting without losing direction. Systems also encourage focus on process rather than outcome. When you chase results, you attach satisfaction to something you can't fully control. But when you build a system, your satisfaction comes from execution, something you can control every day. A musician who practices for an hour daily, regardless of performance outcomes, builds mastery through repetition. The process becomes its own reward, and that mindset naturally sustains consistency. Another critical part of system thinking is automation. Wherever possible, remove the need for conscious decision making, use reminders, prepare in advance, and automate small tasks that support your goals. For example, if your goal is to eat healthy, prepare meals or snacks the night before. The system doesn't rely on your willpower to make the right choice when hunger strikes. The decision has already been made by design. The beauty of systems is that they scale with time. Once established, they operate in the background, freeing mental space for creativity and growth. The energy that used to go into deciding now goes into doing. Over time, systems compound your effort. Just as compound interest grows wealth, consistent systems grow results. The individual actions may feel small, but the cumulative effect is transformative. Systems create identity reinforcement. Each time you follow your system, you reinforce the belief that you are the type of person who follows through. Consistency shifts from being an external task to an internal truth. When you view yourself as someone who lives by systems, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like integrity. It becomes less about proving something and more about expressing who you are through repeated, structured action. When you prioritize systems over streaks, you move from chasing short-term motivation to building long-term momentum. Systems are the architecture of consistency, invisible yet powerful. They turn good intentions into predictable results by removing the need to rely on willpower. A strong system doesn't just help you stay consistent, it makes inconsistency almost impossible. Perfection is one of the most common barriers to consistency. People often set high standards for themselves, imagining that success comes only when everything goes exactly as planned. But this pursuit of flawlessness is deceptive. It creates pressure, breeds self-criticism, and ultimately paralyzes action. The truth is that progress, not perfection, is what sustains growth. When the focus shifts from doing everything right to simply doing a little better each day, consistency becomes achievable and rewarding. Perfection is rigid, progress is flexible. Perfection demands ideal conditions, the perfect time, the perfect environment, the perfect level of readiness. Progress accepts imperfection as part of the journey. Waiting for perfect conditions means never starting, because real life is always messy. Consistency thrives in imperfection because it values effort over error. Even on difficult days, taking small steps keeps momentum alive. Those who understand this principle stop judging themselves for what went wrong and start celebrating what went right, no matter how small it seems. The human brain is wired to respond positively to progress. Each small accomplishment triggers a sense of reward, releasing dopamine that reinforces behavior. This means progress creates its own motivation. When you focus on getting 1% better each day, your brain learns to associate effort with achievement. Perfection, however, does the opposite. It delays satisfaction until you reach an unrealistic ideal, robbing you of the small victories that build motivation. Over time, the pursuit of perfection leads to burnout, while the pursuit of progress leads to persistence. Progress-based thinking also changes how you interpret failure. Instead of seeing mistakes as evidence of inadequacy, you begin to see them as information feedback that helps you adjust and improve. This mindset builds resilience. For example, someone learning a new language might struggle with pronunciation. A perfectionist becomes frustrated and quits, while a progress-oriented learner views every mistake as a stepping stone toward fluency. The difference lies not in talent, but in perspective. Consistency requires the ability to stay engaged through failure, and that comes from valuing growth over flawlessness. A focus on progress promotes self-compassion, which is essential for long-term consistency. Harsh self-criticism often feels like discipline, but it's actually a form of sabotage. When people punish themselves for missing a day or performing poorly, they associate their goals with shame instead of growth. Over time, this emotional burden weakens commitment. Self-compassion, on the other hand, allows recovery without guilt. When you forgive yourself for imperfection and simply resume, you preserve momentum. Progress doesn't demand perfection, it only demands return. This mindset can be applied to any daily goal. Consider someone committed to fitness. A perfectionist who misses one workout might feel defeated and skip the entire week. A progress-driven person acknowledges the missed day, then returns to the next session without judgment. Over months, that simple act of returning again and again creates lasting consistency. The same applies to study routines, creative work, or personal development. Missing once doesn't define failure, quitting does. Progress teaches that success lives in the act of continuation. Progress-oriented systems also encourage adaptability. When perfection is the goal, any disruption feels catastrophic. But when progress is the aim, you can adjust and still move forward. If circumstances change, a new job, illness, travel, progress thinking allows you to scale efforts rather than abandon them. You may not have time for an hour-long workout, but you can still stretch for 10 minutes. That flexibility preserves consistency through life's fluctuations. Progress recognizes that something is always better than nothing. and small effort is still movement forward. Another advantage of focusing on progress is that it enhances learning. Perfectionists tend to avoid situations where they might fail, limiting their exposure to new experiences. People focused on progress, however, willingly step into discomfort because they view it as growth territory. They understand that learning curves are messy and nonlinear. By engaging consistently, even when results are uncertain, they develop mastery through repetition and reflection. Progress-oriented individuals become students of improvement, not victims of imperfection. Tracking progress can further strengthen consistency. Instead of measuring perfection, such as hitting every single target, track improvement over time. Journaling, progress charts, or reflection logs help visualize growth. Seeing how far you've come fuels continued effort. The key is to compare yourself not to others, but to your past self. When your benchmark is who you were yesterday, every small improvement becomes meaningful. This mindset replaces frustration with pride, transforming effort into a habit of satisfaction. Progress thinking also nurtures patience. Many people overestimate what they can do in a short period and underestimate what they can achieve over time. Perfectionists often demand immediate results and quit when they don't see them. Those who focus on progress trust the process. They understand that consistency compounds. Every repetition, every small win, every recovery from setback contributes to the bigger picture. This trust in gradual improvement keeps them steady when results are invisible. Patience becomes the companion of consistency. In relationships, careers, and personal growth, valuing progress over perfection leads to greater fulfillment. Perfection isolates. It makes people afraid to share their struggles or show vulnerability. Progress connects. It allows authenticity and shared learning. When you value progress, you inspire others not by appearing flawless, but by showing persistence. Your journey becomes a reminder that consistency isn't about being extraordinary. It's about staying engaged in the ordinary moments that build excellence. Perfection aims for control. Progress embraces evolution. Control restricts, evolution expands. The perfectionist says, I must not fail. The progress-minded person says, I will learn from whatever happens. That shift in language changes everything about how we approach consistency. Progress gives permission to be human, to stumble, to adapt, to begin again. It makes effort sustainable because it aligns with the reality of growth. Messy, uneven, but meaningful. When you focus on progress instead of perfection, consistency stops feeling like a burden and becomes an act of self-respect. Each step forward, however small, affirms your commitment to growth. It reminds you that the goal isn't to never fall, it's to always rise. And that rising again and again is the truest form of consistency. Discipline is often seen as a personal trait, something that lives entirely inside our minds. But in reality, discipline is heavily influenced by the spaces we inhabit, the people we surround ourselves with, and the cues that fill our daily environments. Our surroundings silently shape our actions, often more than willpower ever could. A well-designed environment can make good habits effortless, while a poorly structured one can make even the strongest intentions crumble. The truth is simple. If you want to stay consistent with your goals, you must design an environment that makes discipline the natural choice. Human behavior is context-dependent. We act based on what is visible, available, and convenient. When our surroundings make the right choices easy and the wrong choices difficult, consistency becomes automatic. For example, a person who wants to eat healthier but keeps junk food on the counter is fighting a constant visual cue that triggers temptation. Another person who keeps fruits visible and snacks hidden doesn't need to rely on willpower. The environment does the work. The key is to engineer cues that pull you toward productive behaviors and remove those that push you away. Every environment has friction, the ease or difficulty associated with taking an action. To build discipline, reduce friction for desired habits and increase it for unwanted ones. If your goal is to read daily, keep a book within arm's reach. If you want to avoid distractions, keep your phone in another room during focused work. The human brain naturally follows the path of least resistance, so changing your environment to make positive habits convenient and negative habits inconvenient rewires behavior without forcing it. Small adjustments, like preparing your gym clothes the night before or keeping your workspace tidy, can transform the level of consistency you maintain. The people around you are also part of your environment, and they play a powerful role in shaping discipline. Behavior is contagious. When you surround yourself with people who value consistency, productivity, and growth, their habits influence yours. This phenomenon, often called social modeling, explains why communities of like-minded individuals thrive together. If your goal is to write daily, joining a group of writers who share their progress can keep you accountable. If you spend time with people who constantly complain or procrastinate, their energy will pull you downward. Choosing your circle carefully is not about judgment, it's about alignment. Accountability thrives in a supportive environment. When you share your goals with others who genuinely care about your progress, you add an external layer of responsibility. Knowing that someone will check in on your progress often pushes you to follow through even when motivation fades. Accountability partners, mentors, or supportive peers act as mirrors, reflecting both your effort and your potential. They help transform discipline from an internal struggle into a shared commitment. The awareness that someone believes in your ability creates psychological pressure that strengthens consistency. The physical structure of your workspace, home, or study area also plays a crucial role. Cluttered spaces lead to cluttered minds. Research shows that messy environments increase cognitive overload, making focus and discipline harder to sustain. Designing a clean, organized, and purpose-driven environment reduces mental resistance and improves clarity. Lighting, posture, and sound can all affect your state of mind. Bright, natural light promotes energy, while dim, disorganized surroundings drain focus. Even the smell of a space can influence alertness. Every sensory detail contributes to how your mind perceives readiness. Routine locations can serve as habit anchors. The brain learns to associate specific environments with specific behaviors. For instance, if you always study at your desk and relax on your couch, your brain automatically shifts into a focused state when you sit at your desk. But if you mix those spaces, working where you sleep or studying where you eat, mental boundaries blur and discipline weakens. Consistency thrives in environmental clarity. Assigning distinct physical spaces for different tasks reinforces mental habits tied to those spaces. Digital environments matter as much as physical ones. The modern world floods attention with notifications, endless scrolling, and distractions. Digital discipline requires curating your virtual environment just as carefully as your physical one. Organize your digital workspace, turn off unnecessary alerts, and declutter your online tools. Technology can either enhance discipline or destroy it, depending on how it's managed. Using apps that block distractions, track progress, or remind you of priorities can create a digital system that supports consistency instead of undermining it. The emotional tone of your environment also determines how you sustain discipline. Environments filled with encouragement, inspiration, and calm energy make it easier to stay engaged with your goals. Conversely, negative, tense, or chaotic surroundings create emotional fatigue. Music, color schemes, and even small affirmations can elevate mood and foster motivation. For instance, a workspace with motivational quotes, calming plants, or soft background music can subtly reinforce focus and positivity. Emotional cues are often underestimated, yet they shape how you feel about returning to your routines each day. Another vital aspect of environmental discipline is predictability. Consistent environments create mental cues that build routine. When your daily surroundings follow a stable rhythm, waking at a certain time, using the same workspace. Following a familiar morning process, your brain begins to anticipate productive behavior. Predictability reduces decision fatigue, a major enemy of discipline. The more you automate through your environment, the more energy you free up for meaningful work. A stable structure doesn't limit creativity, it liberates it by removing unnecessary decisions. Adaptability within your environment is equally important. Life changes, you travel, relocate, or shift responsibilities. Discipline falters when environments change suddenly, but if you've learned to identify and recreate the environmental triggers that support your habits, you can stay consistent anywhere. Bringing small portable cues, such as a notebook, a scent, or a playlist, can anchor your habits in new places. Adaptable discipline comes from understanding the environmental conditions that help you thrive and replicating them in different contexts. Ultimately, the environment acts as an invisible partner in your pursuit of consistency. It doesn't just influence your behavior, it shapes it, silently reinforcing or undermining your discipline every day. When designed intentionally, it becomes a source of effortless motivation, reducing the need for constant self-control. Every object, sound, and person around you sends signals that either align with your goals or pull you away from them. By curating your surroundings to match your aspirations, you turn discipline from a daily challenge into a natural outcome of your environment.